Hey guys, Spud here, and today we have an in-depth overview of the new DCS Sinai Map. The developers over at OnReTech have asked me to bring you on a journey across the vast and ancient landscape, and show you all what makes this map an absolute joy to fly over. Our overview of the new Sinai Map will be broken down into three distinct parts: the history of the region we find ourselves in today, the geography and landscape of the Sinai Peninsula and beyond, and finally how these two will come together to influence the gameplay possibilities of the new map. The history of the Sinai Peninsula is as rich and diverse as the life that flourishes on the coral reefs of the Red Sea, and has played a central role in human culture and history for thousands of years. The annual breaching of the banks of the Nile River and the fertile alluvial plain of the Nile Delta has made Egypt a hotbed of human activity since the time of antiquity. The stark contrast between the western and eastern deserts and the fertile Nile Valley made the annual flooding the difference between life and death, prosperity and famine. This seemingly invisible and all-powerful force that decided the fate of individuals and empires alike made the area a hotbed of religious thinking and a cultural center, leading to the creation of massive monuments, along with stories and traditions that have survived the test of time and continue to influence us today. From the pyramids of the pharaohs to the love story of Antony and Cleopatra, who lived and loved in the bastion of all mankind's knowledge, Alexandria, to Moses receiving the 10 Commandments atop Mount Sinai, creating the very foundation of the Torah, Bible, and Quran, and igniting the conflict we have depicted on our map today. Nearly 2,000 years later, the region still holds its place as one of the main centers of commerce, religious thought, and culture, thanks to the vital artery of global commerce, the Suez Canal. The modern stories of Egypt, Sinai, Palestine, and Israel are just as inspiring as Moses leading the Jews from slavery, as heartbreaking as Antony and Cleopatra, and as epic and heroic as the construction of the pyramids. But our modern epics outstrip the majesty of even the Great Pyramids, through the one thing the giants of the ancient world could only look up at the birds and dream of: flight. Ever since T.E. Lawrence or Lawrence of Arabia helped to foment and lead the Arab Revolt, the airplane and then the helicopter have played a central part in shaping the history of the region, as warriors traded in their horses for tanks and their spears for missiles. The Sinai Map covers an area of the world that encompasses some of the largest and most consequential aerial battles in history that helped to shape the trajectory of the Cold War and reverberate throughout the region to this day, while covering almost every current and upcoming DCS World aircraft module. Just to name a few, the 1948 Israeli War of Independence, with the Spitfire and Bf-109 standing in as an S-199. The 1956 Suez Crisis for the upcoming F-4U Corsair and Spitfire Mark 9, and the P-51D Mustang, where we see the end of the British Empire and the rise of Gamal Abdel Nasser. The 1967 Six-Day War for the upcoming Mirage 3 or the Mirage F1 as a stand-in, where Israel blitzkrieged across Egypt and Syria to expand its borders to 3 times its original size in only 6 days. The 1970-73 War of Attrition for the Community A4E Skyhawk and upcoming F4E Phantom II, that saw Israeli F4s fighting in the skies against Soviet-flown MiG-21 fishbeds. The 1973 Yom Kippur War, again for the A4E Ahit and the F4E Kurnas, that saw the Cold War powers of the United States and Soviet Union almost start a nuclear war over their various proxies on the Sinai Map, as well as various modern anti-terrorism operations in and around the Gaza Strip and Sinai Peninsula, for aircraft such as the AH-64D Apache, F-16C Viper, and upcoming F-15I Ra'am. The DCS Sinai Map can be broken down into 4 main areas, each with their own unique geography and corresponding gameplay possibilities within DCS World for players and mission makers alike. Looking at the map, and starting from east to west, we have the eastern shore of the Red Sea that makes up parts of Saudi Arabia and Jordan, and is mainly composed of rocky desert mountains that border the deep blue of the Red Sea, and will remind many DCS players of the Zagros Mountains of the Persian Gulf map. Across the Gulf of Aqaba and the Great Rift Valley, where the Sinai Peninsula becomes separated from the African and Arabian tectonic plates, is the Israeli region of the map, with green hilly areas in the north around Tel Aviv that become progressively flatter and browner as we head south of the holy city of Jerusalem and into the Negev desert. To the west, across the land border, and deeper into the desert, we get to the Sinai Peninsula, an arid and inhospitable region known for its historical invasion routes across the flatlands to the north and the impassable mountains surrounding the holy site of Mount Sinai to the south. Mount Sinai and her sister Mount Catherine are the most prominent landmarks on the map and can be seen from hundreds of miles away, giving players an easily recognizable landmark for pilotage and a small respite from Egyptian radar coverage. Moving further still to the west, we reach the Suez Canal, the great divide between the Sinai Peninsula and the Egyptian region of the map. The Suez Canal has been the center stage in almost every conflict in the region since the creation of the nation of Israel, and continues to be the main artery of trade between Europe and Asia, while remaining the de facto border between the great continents of Africa and Asia. Continuing our journey westward across the DCS Sinai Map, we finally find ourselves in the heartland of the ancient nation of Egypt, where you will find the vast majority of your targets. Traditionally, scholars break Egypt down into various separate regions, with the Great River Nile as the divider. The eastern desert of Egypt rises from the teeming life-filled waters of the Red Sea, and becomes a wasteland of arid desert hills and mountains, providing the only relief to the terrain from the salmon-infested flats of northern Egypt and the Suez Canal zone. This parched desert landscape is cleaved in half by the life-giving waters of the Nile River to create the Great Western Desert. The very same unforgiving landscape over which the fate of the world rested in the battles between the British and Commonwealth forces against Erwin Rommel's Afrika Korps nearly 8 decades ago. This landscape is marked by slowly rising terrain as you head to the south, but is not nearly as vertical as the eastern desert. Between the great eastern and western deserts lies the largest desert oasis on the planet, the Nile River Valley and the alluvial plain of the Nile River Delta, the lifeblood of empires and nations for thousands of years. This large verdant green strip through the desert is where you will find the largest city in DCS World to date, Cairo, as well as hundreds of SAM sites sitting atop the most highly defensible airspace in the planet, with nowhere to hide from the all-seeing eyes of Egyptian SAM operators, making for the toughest target sets DCS World has to offer thus far. So now we come down to the most important part of a DCS world map, the gameplay. Will the map be an interesting and fun map to fly over from both a fixed wing and rotary wing perspective? In my opinion, one of the defining aspects of this map will be its historical value as an absolutely perfect playground for the Community A4E Skyhawk and the upcoming DCS F4E Phantom II, in recreations of the epic battles of the Six-Day War and War of Attrition along with the Yom Kippur War. But DCS is far more than just the Kurnoss and the Ahit, and we must look at what the map will bring to our Apache, Tomcat, Hornet, and Viper pilots, among others, of course. This is where the unique geography of the Sinai map comes in, and where we can extrapolate historical themes into scenarios that will be perfect for all DCS World modules and playstyles. Eastern Egypt and the Suez Canal Zone are home to some of the best territory on Earth for the employment of surface-to-air missile or SAM systems, with very little but the horizon blocking the line of sight of search and fire control radars. This will make suppression and destruction of enemy air defenses a very fun challenge on this map, and thanks to developer OnReTech, placing SAMs has never been easier, with pre-made hardened SAM sites marked directly on the F10 map in the Mission Editor and in their historically accurate positions. You can even go on Google Maps and zoom in on satellite view and see those SAM sites in their correct places today. Moving away from SEAD and DEED, this massive expanse of flat terrain will also cater to some very interesting beyond visual range or BVR air-to-air engagements, with players able to use their radars and sensors to detect enemy aircraft from hundreds of miles away, allowing pilots to jockey for position and fine-tune their tactics for the aerial jousting match to come. But this shouldn't deter any DCS helicopter pilots from flying on the Sinai map. The flat terrain is absolutely perfect tank country, and with multi-threading, I can envision tank battles with hundreds of tanks and very little cover, favoring the boom and zoom tactics of DCS MIL Mi-24 Hind pilots. But those sneaky DCS Apache pilots should not despair. The high mountains and deep valleys of the southern Sinai Peninsula are the perfect landscape for small unit tactics and supporting special forces teams. While the mind-bogglingly vast cities of Cairo or Tel Aviv will be the perfect stage for intense and close-quarters urban combat, such as a fictional invasion of Egypt or a far more serious intifada. And zooming out to more fictional-based types of environments, I have always believed that the best maps for PvP action are maps with highly identifiable geographic landmarks that allow a player to quickly and easily determine where they are on the map at a moment's notice, letting them know if they are in friendly or enemy territory. This is one of the reasons why I have always believed the Persian Gulf map is superior to the Syria map when it comes to PvP type of scenarios. Geographic features like Mount Sinai, the Great Rift Valley, the Suez Canal, the Nile River, and many others will make pilotage on the Sinai map an absolute breeze. And with two separate and distinct bodies of water, the Med and the Red Sea, I can totally see a mission maker designing a carrier battle raging between the two, with plenty of ground-based aircraft to support the carrier battle groups. But of course, we have to talk about the most important part of a DCS World Map's gameplay: performance, which I'm very happy to report to you guys is fantastic, even over the sprawling city of Cairo. I'm sure many of you out there are worried about this aspect of the map due to the resource-intensive nature of the DCS Syria map. But it is definitely a safe bet that if you can run the notoriously high-performing DCS Persian Gulf map, Sinai will give you no trouble at all, even flying over those gigantic cities. So what's the bottom line when it comes to the DCS Sinai map? So many in the community have bemoaned the fact that it is yet another desert map, or have expressed disappointment that it is not connected to the Syria map. I definitely understand and sympathize with these opinions, and I am sure we will continue to see these expressed moving forwards. However, in talking with various DCS World Map developers, not just at OnReTech, It's unfortunately impossible to connect the two maps, and that is one possibility we can put to bed right off the bat here. And while I would absolutely kill for a DCS Vietnam map, the Sinai map is an extremely compelling place to fly, thanks not only to its historicity and geography, but also OnReTech's unparalleled artistic and technical prowess when it comes to DCS world map making. I know we all want a home for the new F4E Phantom 2 coming down the pipe, and I think the Sinai map is a great fit. Hopefully Heatblur is listening here and will include some Israeli skins by default with the module, and maybe some Southeast Asia skins with the Star of David hastily applied as a nod to the 1973 Yom Kippur War. I would personally recommend the DCS Sinai map to any DCS World player, new or veteran alike, with any combination of hardware or PC specs. And I hope this map is a success so we can continue to see new projects from OnReTech in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. Please leave a like and a subscribe if you are excited for this new map, and please feel free to ask more about the map in the comments down below.